Good afternoon, White Pine County School District. This is your Superintendent Adam Young, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by Sheriff Scott Henriod, Sheriff of White Pine County. Sheriff, thanks for joining me today.
Yep. Thank you, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let's maybe start with something that's easy here. You, my friend, and I as well, are a White Pine High School alum from back in the day, correct?
We are. Yes,
Class of
1982.
1982.
Yep.
I came a couple years after that, but
Just a couple.
not too many. So, and you of course raised your family here as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Adam. We are with my grandchildren. That makes us 6 generations of White Pine County residents.
Yeah,
Yeah. So we go way back.
yeah. Well, and not only your side of the family, but your wife's as well.
Correct. Yeah. My wife is also alumnus, and
Uh-huh.
yep. So is her family, and they go way back also.
Yeah. Well, I have always viewed my role as an educator here in the community as certainly a calling and not a job. And I would imagine with roots in the community as deep as yours that you view it that way too.
I do. It's you just have these ties to your community where you want to see it just prosper, and especially in the school, you have such a interest in watching those kids just turn into good people and continue on and watch them take on basically your and my roles in the future.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah. Growing leaders, right?
yeah, that's what we're hoping for.
It'll be
Correct.
someone else's turn here. So, safety, well-being of both students and staff. That's one of our theories of action as a school district, and certainly right up your alley as a law enforcement official. So we'll talk a little bit about some of these things today that we're working on. Maybe we could start with another kind of easy one. There has been a really great collaboration between the county, the sheriff's office in particular, and the school district over the last couple of years with a school resource officer who's kind of assigned to our campuses during the course of the week. What have been some of the things that you've observed that have made that a successful model?
Well, you're absolutely right. You know, just a couple years ago, I had the privilege to go in front of the commission and request an additional person to be hired with the sheriff's office. And that person was to be hired for the school resource officer. And that school resource officer was to take upon a role that had been vacant and non-existing in our community. And that school resource officer is to work with students, with faculty, with staff, and with yourself to come up with solutions to best protect our schools, our students, and our property. And so those were the goals that we kind of set aside to look at and to see how we could accomplish those. And that program's now been going, this is our third year, and I see a great connection between the sheriff's office, your staff, and our students. They know our school resource officer, they know what he's there for, and it's just built that community relationship and trust.
Yeah. It's certainly been a positive from our end of things as well. I think about kind of the two-pronged, multi-pronged approach of safety and well-being, and the law enforcement's presence and support is one component of that. And then on our end, we've really worked to bolster our mental health supports and the types of kind of wraparound services that are available for our families as well. And I think those two things in tandem are addressing some of the, just the challenges that exist in raising young people in 2025. There are a lot of challenges with just our families and availability of resources and stuff, but I think this partnership has really bolstered that in both arenas.
I totally agree.
Yeah. So not too long ago, the county commission adopted an ordinance that is a new one in White Pine, specific to vapes and vape products. Do you want to share a little bit about what that looks like?
Sure. One of the things that you were aware of is as we went into this new era of vaping, unfortunately the legislatures didn't really address the situation when it came to juveniles. So juveniles were in possession of vape products, or they were actually using vape products. And there was just this gap in the law that kind of just left this open, where there was no real consequences for the juvenile population for that use and possession. So my school resource officer actually came to me and said, hey, you know, we got this issue going on, not only in our schools, but in our community, where we're locating these kids that are in possession of vapes, and they're also using, but we really don't have any consequences for that action. So we looked around the state of Nevada, and we contacted other sheriff's offices and communities to see what they were doing and what ordinances that they had in place. And so we took a little bit of this and that from each one of those ordinances, got with our district attorney's office and created a vaping ordinance for White Pine County. And so what that does now is, I know the school has, you know, basically created their policies on this, and so the students might have been in violation of their policy at the school, but now they're also in violation of a county ordinance. And so what that does is that once they've made that violation, and that makes it into a juvenile record, where now they'll be going in front of a juvenile magistrate. And once they go in front of the juvenile magistrate, there's consequences. So those consequences actually go up the ladder as they get more and more offenses, and some of them are pretty serious.
Yeah. I appreciate, I know all of us as educators really appreciate that support. My perspective on that is that we have certainly seen an increase in the not only kind of the contraband, if you want to call it that, but the usage of these devices on our campuses, and trying to respond to that in a way that is helpful for students is a real challenge.
Right.
You know, there's the consequences, like you talk about from a school perspective, and even from the juvenile system. There's a limit to how effective those can be, because, you know, for example, suspending the student who has a vape in their backpack, to send them away from the school environment where they're missing their learning, they're possibly unsupervised at home because their parents are busy and have work responsibilities and stuff. We haven't really viewed that to be a successful intervention. And so we're left with other types of approaches. And I think this is a piece of the puzzle to loop in some other community resources that could potentially be there to help the student and the family.
Correct. Yep. You know, with life, any choice that you make, good or bad, there's always a consequence. If you're making good choices, those consequences are great, right? They lead to positive actions. But if you're making poor choices, such as if you're a juvenile and you want to vape, or you have in possession of vapes, well, those consequences come with responsibilities. You have to accept them, and so you have to face those type of penalties.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, as part of this ordinance, in one of the early offenses, some of those interventions include like participating in an education-based program about vaping and its harmful consequences, especially when your physical form is still in the early development stages.
Yeah. For the first and second offense, this is how the ordinance reads. It says, the minor shall be deemed a child in need of supervision, and is not a delinquent child, and the child must be placed under informal supervision pursuant to NRS 62C-200. The child shall perform not more than 24 hours of community service and mandatory attendance and successful completion of a tobacco awareness and program. So you're exactly right. There's a little bit of education that's going on with that action, and hopefully that education leads to some awareness where they're like, well, this is a health issue too, you know. This could lead to long-term health effects.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And then, of course, on the third, then it gets a little bit more into more serious consequences, where they might lose their driver's license, they get put on probation, and so things of that nature just continue forward. So you don't want to get, a second or third offense.
Yeah.
Those are progressive laws, and when those laws keep moving up the ladder, like we talked about a little bit more before, it just becomes more serious, and you don't want to cross those lines.
Yeah. Well, we certainly appreciate your support on that, District Attorney Melissa Brown, and her work on the item, as well as our county commission for moving that forward, and again enhancing this partnership that the cliche of it takes a village to raise a child is really true. We certainly feel that as a school district, and believe that the more we can work in concert with the other local agencies and of course our families, the more likely we are to move our students and our young people in a direction that's helpful for them ultimately.
I agree.
Yeah. So, also in the news, I guess we could stay as far as school starting up in 1 week, is we have a lot of construction going on downtown, adjacent to White Pine Middle School. Of course, there's all of the traffic types of things that we need to remind ourselves of as citizens of our great county, as buses and students will soon take the streets again. What do you want to say to the people who are out there watching this about all of that?
So I can tell you right now, and it's not something new, because if you're driving around our city streets right now, especially Altman Street, you have construction on both ends of town. There's only one small section in town that's not under construction right now. And that construction is basically going to be going on for the next couple of years. Is it a hassle right now? Yeah, it really is. I mean, you go and one lane's changed, and the next day you go back and the other lane's changed. So you have to really be focused on your driving. Don't be looking at your cell phone while you're driving, of course, because that's a distraction. Don't be eating or munching on a hamburger trying to drive through a construction zone. It just doesn't work out. You're putting yourself and the construction operators and workers in jeopardy there. So be diligent, be focused. But because of that project is going to be taking such a long time, we really ask the public to do a couple of things. One is to slow down, is to really watch the zones that are regulated by speed as you're going through those construction zones. Be prepared to stop. Don't be in a hurry. If you're, especially with the school year coming at them, everybody knows that, your kids get up late, you're stuffing them in the car and you're trying to get them to school on time. So, you might have a little bit of extra pedal on that foot that you're trying to get there. Well, that doesn't work in a construction zone, because like say, everything's backed up. You got workers out there working, and you've got kids now crossing the streets, trying to get to and from schools. You got school buses that are now offloading and unloading children. And our number one goal is to make sure everybody stays safe as we're doing this. So slow down, take your time, plan for some extra time to and from picking up or dropping off your kids. Watch out for those school buses, not only in the construction zone in the schools, but in our communities on the McGill Highway, up by Ruth, in Lund, Baker, McGill, wherever they might be dropping off. When those buses put on those flashing lights and those arms come down, you gotta stop. There's no such thing about going around them. Those kids are getting off that bus, and they need to be safe to be able to cross those streets.
Yeah. Well, the area is so unique, especially like you say, out on the McGill Highway is what really comes to mind, is that their speed limit out there is 60 miles per hour. I think it's probably fair to say that sometimes people go faster than that out there. And then yet in the middle of the road, you've got a yellow bus with the stop sign out, and it can be dicey out there.
It really can, yeah. On some of the roads they're able to pull off, but on some of them they're not. So you have exactly what you're talking about. You have a major highway, US 93, where you're offloading kids in a 60 mile per hour zone, okay? That's where drivers have to be diligent. They have to be able to be watching for those flashing red lights, see that arm come down on that bus to let people know that they no longer can pass that bus. And even on that section between Ely and McGill, there's very few passing zones, because there's so many residents along that just take your time. Don't be in a hurry. Those children's lives are so important. They're precious. And so don't think you can pass them or do something stupid that causes an accident where we lose children or get people injured.
Yeah, thanks. We appreciate the partnership on that as well. And 1 week from today is Monday, so next Monday we'll have a bunch of buses out on the roads, kids getting to school, kids driving to school, all that fun stuff that marks the
beginning. Yeah, people need to be aware. The middle school drop off is going to change.
Right.
If you haven't been downtown, you'll see a bunch of concrete barriers now in front of the middle school. That is a place where people can no longer drop off children. That's a one lane that's going through there. They've created a buffer between the school and the street so kids can walk in there safely. That's why the concrete barriers are there to protect those children that are using the front of the middle school. So as a parent, you got to be able to understand, or a sibling or grandparent or whoever's dropping off the children, that is no longer going to be a drop-off area. Yeah. There's no parking there. The traffic has to continually move. So be prepared for that change. Understand where the new bus routes are going to be dropping off kids and where you can drop off your child safely at the middle school. And I know that they can reach out to the district to discuss any concerns that they have about that.
Yeah.
But that's one of the major changes that's going on right now in that construction zone.
Yeah. Well, there is a lot going on down there, and for anyone who hasn't gotten the notification yet, our bus drop off for this first part of the year will be on Lion Street on basically the backside of White Pine Middle School, and then we're going to be asking parents to drop off in front of the gym. So all parent drop-offs as school begins here in a week will be, I think that's 8th Street, is that right?
It is.
Yeah. So, and everybody will come in through the gym. That'll be the only entrance that we'll have open to the public in the mornings. The bus drop-offs, that'll happen on Lions, but the kids will need to walk down, go around the corner, and come into the gym through that side. And we've been advised that Altman construction that's in front of the middle school there won't be complete, like you said, probably for quite some time yet. So this is until further notice, basically.
Yeah. It's a couple year project. So I go to a road meeting every 2 weeks, and they update us on all the progress that they're doing. And of course, when winter comes, they will be really scaling back. So that construction zone will be basically a construction zone for the next couple of years, because when they come back next year, they'll just start off where they left. And as soon as weather prevails, they'll continue with their concrete work, and then they'll go into the paving portion. And right now it is a pain. It's anytime you do a improvement, that construction phase is just horrible to work with. But then when it's done, you're like, right. Oh man, this turned out so nice, right?
Yeah, and I for one am looking forward to what that kind of refurbished downtown area is going to be. I think it'll be great when it's done.
It'd be nice to have new curb, gutter, sidewalks, street lights, pavement. Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
You bet.
Yeah.
Well, let's maybe hit one more area before we close it out today, Sheriff. So. As mentioned at the beginning, you and I have been around, both of us, for a while. And one thing that we have seen in schools, this is in no way unique to the White Pine School District, it's kind of ubiquitous everywhere, is that we've seen an increase in the instances of aggression, fighting, basically, on our school campuses. That has occurred here in White Pine, just like it has in Elko and Douglas and everywhere else in Nevada. It's not something that has gone unnoticed, and it's not something that I think any of us, certainly I as a superintendent, want to see happening. Conflict among individuals, conflict among students is nothing new. This is, the idea that we disagree about something and we're going to try to hash it out. That is part of life, and that's what I tell students and families every time I have the chance to talk with them about it. What's been a little bit different is just kind of my first go-to strategy in solving this conflict is I'm going to punch you in the face.
Right.
That is not ideal, and we have seen an increase of these undesirable instances on our campuses. And again, it's a small number of students that kind of creates a lot of distress and havoc for other people. It interferes with the safety and the mental kind of well-being of students as they come onto our campuses, and we want to see it stop. We appreciate your partnership in this, and we have a number of things that we'll continue to employ and try some new things on our campuses. But I guess I just wanted to ask you to weigh in, again, from a legal perspective. We have our internal policies and procedures that involve suspension and remediation with the family, and kind of a reintegration meeting and a problem-solving meeting with the students, like all of these steps that we go through. But in addition to all that, there's generally going to be a legal consequence when there's a battery that's involved on a campus as well. What can you say about that?
That's correct. In fact, we encourage your staff to contact the sheriff's office anytime that there's an act of violence. So what we do is we go up and we make contact with your staff, and we also make contact with the students that are involved. Once that happens, then we, of course, submit our paperwork to juvenile probation, who will then petition the courts to bring that student that was involved in that battery and their parents or legal guardian into court. So they have to go to court and be in front of a judge, which is one of our district court judges, who's our juvenile magistrate, and that judge will render a consequence for that juvenile. So that juvenile is now in the criminal justice system as a juvenile. And so that record will follow that juvenile all his juvenile life. And if he is a repeat offender, then he comes back into court, or she comes back into court, and those consequences again start totaling up to where they could be sent to China Springs for a program, they could be sent to Elkwood Detention Center and held in their detention center, or they could actually be held here for a couple of days in our detention facility. So incarceration is effective even on a juvenile. Do we want to ever see it go to that point? Of course not. We want conflict management, just like the school does. We want these students to realize that violence is not the answer. It's just not to lash out. It's to look at somebody's opinion and look at the other person's opinion, and if you don't like it, oh well, walk away. It's as simple as that. You don't have to, agree on the color or the shade of purple every time. It's just a matter of human nature that we all like different things in life. I always think back of some of the things that you and I dealt with as we were growing up, and there was always conflicts when we were in high school too, but I rarely remember those coming to blows. You just didn't like that person, and so you stayed away from them, and they didn't like you, so they stayed away from you, and you just kind of went on your own merry way and did your own things and did your own likes and dislikes. And that's one of the things that our school resource officer is really focused on in this coming school year, Adam, is to alleviate some of these acts of violence.
Yeah. Well, again, this is an area of focus certainly for our schools, and we appreciate that partnership. I mean, we could probably spend hours talking about some of the contributing factors to this being kind of the go-to strategy. But the reality is, to your point, there are many, many ways to handle conflict and disagreements. My position is I don't want the choices of a couple of students to engage in an act like this to cause distress to the bulk of students who are just showing up, minding their own business and doing their jobs. And then, of course, that filters on to the distress of parents and other caregivers and stuff too. So we are committed to to making sure that there are other ways for these incidents to be handled. And if a student decides that they're still going to do it, we're going to have a swift and harsh response, and it's not going to be one that's appreciated probably in the moment by that student. But we're tired of it. We need it to stop.
Yeah, and you're correct. Yeah, I'm with you 100% there. Every student that's going to school should feel safe in doing so. They should be able to feel comfortable in going to school and to receive the best education that they have, to participate in all the extracurricular activities and just have an enjoyable school year. You know, that's what it's all about. When you have a little group of kids that want to demean that and bring violence into your school, well, guess what? We're going to deal with you too. We're going to make sure that you're detained and that you're put into the juvenile system. And I think a big part of this too, Adam, is parents of those kids that are involved need to step up. They need to be part of this program and discourage their kids in acting like this. They need to be able to talk with their kids and say, hey, you know what? I know you don't like student X, but you know what? Student X has his own choices and decisions, and let's just not be part of that group. So I really encourage parents, Adam, to step up and be part of the solution, not the problem.
Yeah, amen to that. And thank you to all of the parents and families who are really involved and active in that way. You can find any contact information for our LCSWs, our counselors, our principals. All of those things are available on our website, and of course by calling the school, and we do our best to try to provide early intervention so that things don't escalate. But, you know, again, we do need the help in saying, walk away, you know, and like you said, in my own mind, I might believe that I'm right about something and I'm justified in something, and you might feel the same way. But that does not mean that I have to prove that I'm right or you have to prove that I'm right.
Correct.
You know, we can coexist in the same space and and function. That is literally what life is about.
Yep. I agree.
Well, Sheriff, I appreciate your time. Just really am grateful for the support that your agency provides to our schools. Thanks for all the wise words of advice for today. And I'll see you soon.
Thank you for having me, Adam. Appreciate it.
Okay. See you next time.
Thank you.